Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning for everyone that's watching us online. It's with a lot of love in our hearts. We're here today, warming up to this very cold winter day, very slippery outside. And today we're going to have the blessing of hearing about the lessons from Jesus. And that's pretty much all we do every day in our lives. We're going to have a big summary today, again, just to make us more aware of what we need to learn and what we need to do, right, in our lives. So it's great to have all you here. And today we're going to have Rafael giving us the lecture, and we're going to have a reading now from, and then after that we're going to have a prayer, and then we're going to Rafael's lecture. So I'm going to invite reading now.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So, the reading is from the book Happy Life from Divaldo Franco and Jonathan. God knows your destiny is in control of your life. You deserve whatever happens to you so that you may gain new ground along the evolutionary continuum. God is a merciful Father who watches over you. Never consider yourself overlooked, tumbling down the slippery slope of rebelliousness and blasphemy. Humans must practice courage and resignation, otherwise they will stay spiritually immature. God does not play favorites. God loves everyone the same way. Let yourself be led by events you cannot change, while lovingly changing those that will benefit you. Falling into despair? Never.
Thank you. So let's all at this moment elevate our thoughts to our Creator, our Father, Mother, God, our Master Jesus. Let us open our hearts to receive the lessons of today, to connect ourselves with this pure, bright energy that flows through this room at this moment, uniting our hearts and our thoughts, and sending love and good thoughts to all of those around the world that are in need. Thank you for the opportunity, God, of being here today, and one more time being reminded of the importance of the law of love and the teachings of Jesus. And may all have the opportunity to leave here today with a little bit more of transformation in our hearts, ready to take on new challenges and learn from every single opportunity. Thank you, and so be it. Okay.
Hey guys, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to those who are watching over the internet. And in seeing the room the way it is, so we always think that it's better to deliver a lecture when the room is full of people. And I was remembering a situation when Chico, he was waiting for people to come to his study. And almost nobody came. And then he was very sad and he was crying. And then Emmanuel told him, "Why are you crying? Nobody came. The room is full. The room is full of." So the thing is, we need to remember that when we don't have our bodies anymore, so when we go to the spiritual plane or the spiritual world, we still have the same thirst for light, for enlightenment, for consoling that we have when we are incarnated. And the difference is, when we are in the spiritual world, we don't care about the snow and the ice, because it doesn't affect us, so it's very easy for us to come. So we can be sure that right now, this room is full. So we have a lot of brothers and sisters who are here, and they are listening to whoever is here representing the Spiritist doctrine. So I like to keep this, to leave this clear for everybody and to myself. And I'm not speaking just for you guys, which is also important, but the room is also full. So we are in the end of another year, and this also always tells me a lot, because when we get close to Christmas, it is my favorite time. It's cold. I like cold. And it's white. It's pretty, and we start thinking about family, about who are we going to invite to come to our house, who do we want to share this moment with. And then we also remember that another year went by very fast, as our life is. Our life incarnate here is very fast. The years keep passing by, keep passing by. And when we get to this time of the year, it seems that the world is more illuminated, it's happier. But this is just because is when we start paying more attention. The sun is always there. The light is always there. It's just that this is the time where we stop. Because our life is very busy. We go everywhere, and we work here, we work there. And at this time is when we start remembering this envoy of God that was sent to us. And then we start connecting more with this energy, and it seems that the world is better. Well, it is, because since we connect to this energy, we spread it as well. So we feel better. We feel this warmth that envelops the globe. And I'm here today. My plan is to present a little bit of the teachings of Jesus. And for that, I'm going to do something really simple. I chose two situations of that Jesus went through when he was incarnated among us. And I'll try to extract some teachings from those two different situations that are narrated in the book Boa Nova from Humberto de Campos. But why is that important? Why would I take only two different happenings and extract teachings from them? When we reached 2,000 years ago, when we reached maturity enough, spiritual maturity enough, we were ready to receive the law of God in its entire. We were ready to receive the whole package. And what was the way that God sent us His law? So we have this law in us, right? This is not new. So we have been talking about this the whole year. But as Raul Dutra says, we have spiritual Alzheimer. So we forget all that. So we need to be reminded. So then there was a plan to deliver to us this law. And it wasn't brought to us in a book or in a stone as the Ten Commandments. It was much more than that. We receive the incarnation of the law itself. Jesus is the spirit that we refer to as Jesus. That's just the symbol that we see when we think about him. But he's not a he or a she. He's way beyond that. He has probably names that we cannot pronunciate. But he came as the incarnation of the law of God, because he's in complete communion with God. So everything he says, every body language, he came with the body, so every body language, every action represents the law of God. There's no slip. There's nothing that he does that is wrong. Everything is perfect. So for that reason, when we study the actions that he did, every word, every smile, every hug, every action has a meaning. So that's the reason that we study so much the gospel, to try to unlock, because everything he did, there is a teaching for it. So that is why I'm going to bring only two occasions that are full of things for us to learn. So it will be very simple. I don't know if we're going to take the full hour, probably. every time we talk about Jesus, there's so much to talk about that it's always a long talk. But my intention, again, is just to describe two different situations. So the first of them. So this is Mary and Elizabeth. Elizabeth was Mary's cousin. So this is Mary, the mother of Jesus, right? And they were really good friends, Elizabeth and Mary. So Elizabeth was there when Mary figured out that she was pregnant from Jesus, and they used to visit each other a lot. So in this occasion, Jesus was still very young, around 10 or 12, and Mary receives Elizabeth and her son, which is John, that later on we call the Baptist. And John was Jesus' best friend. They were always together. So they grew up together. So it's like two families visiting each other. So she went there just to share a good time. Just to share a good time. So when they met at this time, and Joseph, Jesus' father, was always working in his shop. That's another lecture just about him. He was always there in the background. Nobody talks about him, nobody remembers him, but without him, there wouldn't be the support that created all the platform for Jesus' mission. So he's there. And then they start talking, and they talk about this, they talk about that, and then they narrow down to talk about their two kids, because they were worried. Their mothers, right? So they were worried about the kids. Why were they worried? So Elizabeth starts talking about John. He's always quiet, meditating. I find him in the corners. He's always thinking, and I saw in his brow that it seems that he's always worried, or that he's thinking about heavy burdens that he has. And I don't understand why. He's just a child. And I don't understand why he seems so worried. And then Mary starts talking about Jesus. Jesus is the same thing. So sometimes I look for him and I don't find him, and I see him close to a lake, just sitting there, looking at the lake, don't say anything. And if he's not there, he's by the road, talking to everybody that is passing by. And then she says, I understand that when he talks about God. I can see this in him. I can see that he is special. Because his word expressed the truth. I feel it in my heart. This is Mary saying. But still, I'm still worried about him. And then she narrates the situation that happened in the day before when they went to Jerusalem in the temple, and Jesus start talking, and then the doctors of the law start reuniting around him. And at that moment, it wasn't just a talk, it was a lecture, because they were asking him, and he was doing all those explanations. And there was one doctor there, his name was Eleazar, and he comes to Joseph and says, be careful with your son. So he's talking about all this, but he's playing with the pride of all these people. I know these people, and I know you. I know that you're a good guy. So be careful with your son. And that when Joseph talked to Mary, so Mary was very, very worried in this situation. And this, once we understand her heart of a mother, we understand why there was that passage in the gospel when Jesus is preaching. He was over 30 and he was preaching in a small house. And then Mary comes with his brothers. And then there was a guy that comes to Jesus and says, oh, your mother and your brothers are here, they're calling you. And then he says, who is my mother and who are my brothers? So he talks about the spiritual family. So then we think, oh, but he didn't respect his mother. No, we'll see later on that was not the case. He used the situation to explain the bounds of the spirit versus the bounds of blood. But Mary knew, she understood his mission. She understood who Jesus was. But first, he was her son. So she didn't want, she was, all those spirits that were participating in Jesus' mission, they were prepared. They knew in their subconscious what would happen. So she was already predicting the cross. And she was feeling that. That's why she went there to call him. It's not that she didn't believe or she didn't understand. It's just that it's my son. I want to protect my son to the end. So then Mary and Elizabeth, they keep talking about that. And then Mary says, but you know what? I was with this worry in my mind. And one day, very unexpected, Jesus comes to me, my small son, comes to me and says, Mother, haven't I showed that I'm in perfect communion with our Father in heaven? So he saw that she was worried. He felt that. And then he wanted to make his mother, to relax a bit. And then he says that, why are you so worried? Why are you so worried? I'm in perfect communion with God. So this is a teaching for us today. It says, why are we afraid? Why do we get so anxious? If God is guiding our lives. I remember when Andre Moreira, when he came here to visit us, and he said something that I thought, I think this is very important, that we need to learn to relinquish control. Relinquish control of our lives. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to work anymore. I'm not going to have my own effort in solving the problems. No, you have to. We all have to. But in the end, God is in the control. God is in control of our lives, of the world, of the universe. So why are we so anxious? We are going through, well, they at that time, 2,000 years ago, they were going through a transition, and we are going again through a transition. And then things start happening, things start changing. We talked about climate change and world leaders that they still present, they show a very primitive behavior and way of seeing things. And we think, oh, everything is crumbling, is coming apart. And that generates depression, that generates anxiety, pessimism. But why? Why? If God is in the control, she is in the control. So that's the effort that we have to do, to try to remember this, to try to educate our minds. So that's what Jesus was telling to Mary. I know you are worried. I know. But I am in communion with God, perfect communion. So everything that happened is His will. So why are you so worried? Don't be that worried. And then she says, I worry, my son, because you're so young and you need preparation. So you see, through her eyes, it's her kid. He was her kid first. And then he says, another phrase is very important. We need to see little by little. Mother, all preparation in this world is useful. However, I'm already with God. Why would I need to prepare? Why do we need to prepare? We come here, we learn about Spiritism, we study, because we don't remember how to connect to God. We know that we believe in God. We know that God is in the control, but we still feel anxious. we still feel fear. So it's a process of study, of understanding, why am I feeling this? Sometimes you get home from work and you see that I'm upset. But why are you upset? What happened to you today that made you feel you don't even remember? But there's something missing. And then you start going back into yourself and see, why am I irritated? What is missing? We forget. We clean our bodies, we brush our teeth, but we forget to clean our spirits. To stop a little bit, make a prayer, or to reconnect. That's what is missing. But that requires discipline, that requires self-knowledge. And that's the preparation that Mary was talking about. And Jesus said, I went through all that already. I'm already with God. I don't need this preparation because I never disconnect from Him. Never. I'm always with Him. So why would I need to prepare any longer? I'm already. I have been prepared for a long time. I came to be an example. That's my time to be an example. So that's Him trying to calm down His mother. But there's another teaching here. He doesn't say, Mother, you are wrong. He acknowledges what she said. I understand. Every preparation in this world is useful. So it's very subtle, but shows that He doesn't offend anybody. He doesn't hurt anybody. Even if you say something and He sees that that is not a complete truth, He still says the truth in a way that doesn't hurt our feelings and our pride. So this is Jesus. Everything He does, everything He says is a teaching. And He continues. He says, I am already with God, but our Father wish for us all to be examples. So it's not just talk. The law of God is practice. We see in the universe is always moving. There's nothing that is standing still. When you think it's standing still, it's just illusion because we don't see the movement. But everything is moving. So we have to be examples. And He said something is very important. Well, everything is very important. So then he tells Mary, I'm going to choose the best school to show my example. And the best school, our homes and work. So I chose this picture because it shows how it somehow closer to reality at that time. So there are no Europeans there. So there are people from that time. Jesus looked like someone at that time from Galilee. So He was not that blonde European guy with very thin nose and blue eyes. So this shows, so after that moment, He went to Joseph and asked, can I work with you? Would you teach me to be a carpenter like you? So then He showed with this example, this is a family union. So it's them living as a family. Because the kingdom of God, as Jesus described, it's joy. It is joy. It's happiness. The suffering that we go through is because we are going through a situation that it is teaching us how to achieve that joy. So the pain, it's temporary and it's teaching us. It's teaching us to get there. Because once we get there, that's the permanent feeling, joy. So Jesus was He is a simple spirit. Pure spirit. Love, simplicity, charity, family, work. So He was 10 to 12. So He spent working with His father until the age of 30 and living with His family. When He reached the age of 30, then He started His 3-year mission. So then we see the family together, and it's something that it's very common. We think that Jesus is different, that he would. So if we imagine something very simple, imagine if he would come here today. Imagine that Jesus would reincarnate again. How would he present himself to us if he wanted to come here? He would come. Well, this is Canada, so we no idea how he would look like. It could be in any culture. He could come as a man or a woman. So he doesn't have to learn how to use the different polarities of the sexual energy. He already knows. So he would come with winter clothes, and he would sit at the back. Why do I say that he would sit at the back? If you guys remember that passage when he was invited for a dinner, and he sat in the lowest place in the table. And then he said, every time you're invited for a dinner or invited to someone's place, you sit in the lowest place. Because at that time, and for a lot of centuries after that, every position of the table had a meaning, right? So the head of the table, or the right of the head of the table, the left of the head of the table, he was saying, be humble and simple. Sit in the lowest place. If someone wants to move you to another place, then okay, then you go. But when you first come, sit in the lowest place. So the way I imagine that he would come is sitting at the back with a huge smile on his face. And we would look to that person sitting there smiling, and we just feel like, I want to talk to that person. I want to go there. Just because the energy that comes out of him, so that joy, I want to participate there. And then he would start talking, and then another one will come, and then soon we'll all be around him just listen to him. So subtle, simple. That's the image there of Jesus that I want to pass on. Not a symbol of a crucifix that we kneel in front of it and we cry and pay penitence. That's not Jesus. That's not who he was. So all this was Mary talking to Elizabeth. And then after that, so Mary tells all this story to Elizabeth, and then they realize, okay, by the way, where are those two? Where is John? Where is Jesus? And then they go outside looking for those two, and there's an elevation and a rock. And Jesus is, they see their backs, Jesus and John, sitting side by side, and Jesus, the child, a small hand, showing the landscape to John. They were planning the mission. They already knew. They were planning what would happen. So they were sharing. So this says a lot. Jesus is our friend, our brother, our master. And he was never alone. We always carry our own crosses by ourselves. But it doesn't mean that we have to walk alone. He always had friends. And he was all about family and friendship. That is Jesus. So then when they came back, Elizabeth and John, they spent the night. Of course, they couldn't walk at night back to their places. There was no cars, and they didn't have money to have a horse. So they had to spend the night and walk back home the next day. And then the next day, Elizabeth invites Jesus, do you want to come with? You want to come with us? And Jesus says, John will go first. What did he mean? So he was all prophetic. Everything that he said got a meaning. So what he meant is, John, he will go back to the spiritual world first. And because John was the precursor, right? So he started the mission. He prepared the field, and then Jesus came. So John, a few years before Jesus was crucified, John was decapitated. So he went first. So that was the first situation. Jesus was a child. The second one is also very interesting. So, 18 or almost 2 decades after this happened, Jesus moves out of his parents' house and he starts his mission. So now everything is ready. I'm strong enough. And I talked to John. I surveyed the landscape. Now I'm going to start. So then he went. But first he went back to talk to John in the desert. So he spent some time with John. Not hanging out. He was there talking to John and sharing energies. You know, when you just want to go be close to your friend, just sitting with your friend. Jesus says that several times when he invited the apostles, come and pray with me. So let's pray, let's be together. So before he started, but even for him, he knew it would be a hard mission. He spent time with John. Then he says, okay, I'm going now. So goodbye. And he starts, and he goes to Jerusalem first. It's a long walk. Then he goes there, and he rests by the temple. And then there was a group of Pharisees, and they see Jesus, and there's something about it. They didn't even know, but there's something about this guy. So I'm going to go there and talk to him, even if it is to make fun of him. But I want to interact with this person that is sitting by the temple. So they go there, and there's this Pharisee, Pharisee guy, Hanan, which later on will be the judge of Jesus' cause. So then he looks at Jesus and he says, Galilean. See, Jesus looked like a Galilean, not an European or German or Italian. Galilean. What are you doing in the city? And then Jesus knew already. He knew what was in the heart of that guy. So then he starts in efficient mode. What is efficient mode? He starts releasing short bursts of truth. So very efficient, not very long conversation, short answers, not losing time. Because he knows that that person had his ears closed and eyes shut. So then he says, I'm passing by, preparing the foundation of the kingdom of God. And then the Pharisee, he thinks about that, and who is this guy to talk about the foundation of the kingdom of God? I work for the kingdom, and I'm a doctor. I study my whole life. And then he started making fun of Jesus, and Jesus in efficient mode. He doesn't get offended. He does not offend back. And he doesn't lose time. He keeps giving short bursts. So the one another question was, do you know Rome and Athens? Saying, have you studied in the University of Toronto? Have you studied in Harvard? Have you studied in Oxford? Who are you to come here and say that I'm going to start the kingdom of God? And Jesus said, I know love and truth. That's it. And it keeps going. And then Hanan gets irritated with him. He moves away. So this, when we read, this is a very important attitude of Jesus, because we see this again in chapter 24 of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Don't hide your light under a cover or under a bushel, but don't go to the Gentiles. What does it mean? If you know the Gospel, don't hide it. Don't hide your light. We all have a light. And this is not just a symbol. It happens. The spirits, they see that we have this light. If you enter in a mode to try to change yourself, to try to be better, automatically you start shining. We don't see it, but the spirits see it. So when you do gospel at home, be certain that you're going to have visitors. You will have visitors because they see that. So don't hide your light. If you have to talk about it, talk about it. But don't go to the Gentiles. Don't lose time with those who are not ready to believe. And actually, there's one part that I want to read for you. It's very fast. But this is in the book, What is Spiritism by Allan Kardec. Because Kardec talked about this too. So he says, this book is actually presenting an answer from Kardec from Review Spirit from 1863. So then Kardec says, Spiritism is meant for those who do not believe or who have doubts, not to those who have faith and for whom their faith is sufficient. So we talk to those who are seeking answers. It tells no one to renounce his or her beliefs in order to adopt ours. This is consonant with the principles of tolerance and freedom of conscience that it professes. So we have no right to go knock on people's doors and say, do you know Spiritism? I want to talk to you about Spiritism. Then you put your foot on the door for the person doesn't close. No, I want to talk about Kardec. Do you know Kardec? And then you throw a book through the gap of the door. That's not what we should do. That's not what Jesus did. That's not what Kardec did. That's not what Chico Xavier did. So wait for those who are seeking the light. Then you talk freely. But we want to have the right to choose Spiritism, to live in this Spiritist doctrine without people judging us. So we need to retribute that. So we can talk. So people ask, so there's always situations, right? So you are at work and then you go to have lunch, and then depending on the company, everybody has lunch together, and then people talk about this, people talk about that. And then this topic comes out. So something happened that you say something, people, oh yeah, why do you believe in that? And then you say, yeah, this is Spiritism. There's no problem saying. But if the person, oh yeah, I don't believe in this, all right, no problem at all. But there will be situations where there will be people that want to know more. They want to know more. Then you speak freely. That's what Jesus was doing with Hanan. We'll see. So this was the situation. He was in Jerusalem, then he had this interaction with Hanan. So after that, he went to Capernaum, a close city. Yeah, not so close. But for them, they were doing everything walking. So Humberto de Campos tells us that he went to Capernaum as if he were looking for a friend. So how do we look when we're looking for a friend? So first we walk freely and relaxed, and we smile. So that's what Jesus looked like. He was looking for a friend. It's like a joyful guy. And then he sees a group of fishermen singing and collecting fish. And then, again, Humberto de Campos tells us that he went to them with friendship. He knew them already. He knew they were all friends. So he went with them, even brother smile. And then he called them. Simon, this was Simon, Peter, and Andrew. Simon, Andrew, I come from God and invite you to help me to build God's kingdom on earth. Who does that? So imagine if you go today and you say the same thing to a guy that is in Dundas Square. Why is it that it worked? They were all friends from before. They had planned all this together. But they were not as pure spirits as Jesus. So they both look at Jesus and, I know this guy, and I like this guy, but I don't know why. And then they go and they start making a lot of questions to Jesus, King of God, but we already have so many kings. And then they get all excited, and Jesus sees that, okay, that's not the time. So then he just asks, do you want to be my disciples? Yes or no? And then they calm down and they say, yes, we'll follow you. And then what he does, he hugs them, both. So he hugs them as saying, I'm so happy that you guys remembered of our mission. I'm so happy that we are together now. And we are here, and this is what we planned, and we are starting, and it's working. So he hugs them both, and he's very happy, and then he goes to the downtown, the center of Capernaum, and there he enters a public building, and there's a booth with a tax collector, what they call the publican. And then he gets to that publican, again he calls by the name Levi, the one we know as Matthew, the apostle, and he does it again. What are you doing? What are you doing, Levi? And he's collecting taxes for Herodes, the king. And do you want to come with me and collect goods from heaven? And Levi again, sure, I'll go with you. I'm going to drop everything and go right now. So again, it didn't happen. This was just one point from a very long journey. They already knew Jesus. They all knew each other. They didn't even remember why they liked that guy so much. And why they wanted to feel that drive to follow him. And then Jesus says, okay, let's go then. And what does he do? He hugs Matthew. He hugs Matthew. I'm so happy. You remembered. We are all together now. So this is Jesus. He was always hugging everybody. So if you read the book Paul and Stephen, so Paul goes through all those difficulties and all those journeys, and finally he discarnated by the sword of a Roman. And then when he goes to the spiritual plane, to the spiritual world, who does he meet there? Jesus. What does Jesus do? Hugs him. So this is something that to me, it tells a lot. It's a simple guy. It doesn't mean that you are a pure spirit and you were going to come blinding everybody with your light. No, that's not the way he is. It's not the way he is. So then they all went back after he collected all his friends, all the apostles. They went back to Simon Peter's house, where everything started. The church started because Peter just offered, okay, you can stay with me. You can stay in my house. And there, when they were all there, then he talked for the first time about the gospel. He talked freely, no parables. What he said on that day, we know today, 2,000 years later, because of Spiritism, that brings all that without any parable. Because at that time, we could not understand. We could not. It was too much for us. So that's why we only remember the parables who are being deciphered today. So then at that moment, he was not in efficient mode. That moment, he was joyful, smiling, and talking about the kingdom of God, his gospel. So he was completely open, and he talked about everything with the apostles. And Humberto de Campos tells us that at that moment, an eternal bond between inseparable companions started. So they were all the mission that had been planning for years, I have no idea how long. It was now ongoing, and they were all there. They were all there as planned. So now they were inseparable companions. So this bond, it's eternal, and they are still bound today. Or ways that we don't understand, but they are all friends to this day. So after that, so he was a very busy guy. He never stopped. So after he talked to the apostles, so they all went. So then Jesus said, okay, now I talked with you. Now we have to talk to the public. We have to start spreading the gospel. You are prepared, you know, you remember, you are with me. Now let's start our journey. So then he went close to the Galilean Sea, because the economy of that region was all based on that sea. So the fishes and market will come by boat. So it was all around that small lake. They used to call Galilean Sea, but if you go to one side, you can see the other. So it's actually a lake. So that region was always full of people. So that he goes close to the lake and he starts talking. There's one guy passing by, and he talks to that guy, and then with that smile, as I said, people start being attracted to him. And then he starts talking and talking, and more people and more people. And then when he sees all that, he smiled again. So he feels joy. This is my mission. This is what we all plan, and it is working. I have the opportunity to bring consolation for all those people. And Umberto de Campos tells us that people were magnetized by his love. What does that mean? His energy, his aura was so large that was whoever was passing by would feel it, would feel that pleasant energy. If we see Chico Xavier, his house was always full. There was always lines of hundreds of meters of people waiting to see him, to hear one word from him. Why would all these people do this? Because when we get close to a spirit who is in perfect communion with the law of God, what do I mean by that? A spirit who everything he thinks, everything he does, it's in connection with the good. It changes the environment, it spreads, it gets, since the energy is coming from God and is being redirected, it has no limit. So if you are inside of that field, as if as we could see further, our blindness about ourselves, about what really hurts in us, that feeling that there's something missing that we don't even know what it is. When we go under this field, it's clear. We see it. That's what is wrong with me. So we remember the good things that happened to us. We remember the bad things we did. It's a mirror. We see ourselves. And since we see ourselves, he sees ourselves too. He sees us, and then he says exactly what we need to hear. So first he shows us, it is hurting here, isn't it? And then he tells, don't worry, this will pass. And this, it uplifts our spirits, and it creates a warmth that we carry with us. That's why people were searching him. That's why people were searching Chico Xavier. And that's why we all come to TSS, even if there's so much ice outside and snow, the weather is not good. Because that's what we want to see. We want to know where is hurting, and what do we do to make it better. Even if sometimes it seems that there's nothing wrong. Or we just come to feel the joy of the gospel. The gospel is joy. It's not suffering. It's not penitence. It's us trying to see the joy of this life. So that is the image of Jesus that I want to leave. That's Jesus. Joy and happiness and love and friendship. So he or she is our friend. He's also our master because he reached the state of pure spirit. So we also have our guide. But his authority comes from the love that he shows us, giving us confidence to follow him. So it's a different type of authority. We feel, I love this guy, and I want to go wherever he goes. That's his authority. It's not something imposed, it's something that is conquered. It's about love, not hierarchy. And then I think, why would he, so he behaved like this for his apostles, his friends. Why wouldn't he behave in the same way towards us? Why wouldn't he come to our houses and hug us too? That's what he did. Why wouldn't he do that? He does. He does. You can be sure that Jesus hugs us too. But he's not a material spirit as we are, a spirit so connected to matter. So we cannot feel by the touch of our skin. We're not going to feel him touching our skin. He's going to touch our spirit. So we need to improve our spiritual perception. What do I mean by that? Every day, for a few moments, turn off the TV, turn off the radio, make a little bit of silence. Just think about Jesus, think about him. And not as a cliche, not as the divinity that we learn to adore, but as the friend that he is. A solid friend, real friend that comes to us, not as a fairy tale, but who is always there. Think about him. And then try to use the resource of prayer. Then talk to him. In your silence, talk to him. It doesn't need to be for a long time. A few minutes every day. Talk to him. If you try it, you see that you feel him. You will feel, and you'll know. And then you see that if you use a little bit of discipline and you make this a habit, you're going to increase the frequency of the times that you are connected to him. And most of your troubles or your anxieties, your fears, the times that you feel upset, they're going to go away. Little by little, little by little. That gives us more courage. The pain will not go away. Pain does not go away because that's our lesson. What goes away is desperation and rebelliousness. We accept the problems that are happening to us. And it's like a father or a mother. They don't take the problems away. They help us, or a very good friend. They help us to overcome the problem, to learn with the problem. They don't take the problem away, because that's what makes us strong. So if we keep this habit, if we let him in, we'll see that we'll feel his hugs too. So I want to finish today by wishing you all that Jesus can come to your homes, can bless your families and all those that participate in your spiritual family, blood relatives or not. And may you all feel the warmth that comes from his presence in your home. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, and let's all enjoy life. Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you very much, Rafael, for the lecture. Any questions from you guys for the internet? Anything there? So I actually have a comment/question. So I think one of the striking things that you said that really, I think, touches me particularly, but I think all of us, that how Jesus, this idea of Jesus not really like breaking the laws, like he said, like he was a really like normal guy incarnated, right? Because he needed to be that way to show us how to behave in our own settings, right? So he wasn't here like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm this guy." No, he's like he's a carpenter. He's walking around, like with his buddies, which are fishermen, which is certainly not the highly praised society people, right? They're just hardworking people. And I think one thing that I think you said that really I think was touching is to understand our role in our society, mirroring what Jesus really was acting, like his tiny little actions, like you said, like his body language, like everything, like walking around and doing all the things as most people do at a time. So I think what's important to us again is that we can't really try to change things like, oh no, I'm gonna be like the saintly individual now. I'm gonna do like that. Does not work, right? It's just like the little tiny actions, from the way you say good morning to the way you behave yourself and put your body into action and how you interact with people, all where we go. That's really what Jesus was telling us, right? Isn't that the case?
Yeah. Completely. Otherwise, it's almost done.
Yeah, it's almost. Okay, so any other comments from you guys? So I'd like to thank you again, Rafael, for this amazing, great lecture we had today. So now we're going to go into our passes. Yes. Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank all of my friends connected with us online. Thank you very much for joining us today and join us again in our next broadcasts. And now for us here, spirits and incarnated spirits, discarnated spirits, I'll ask you guys to come a little bit closer together so we can have the passes.